close to it.
All right. Sorry about the delay.
Hello,
Welcome to the
everyone.
stream. Welcome to the stream. Stream number 2 for Typical UI. Our last stream, we did a little triaging, figured out what we were doing wrong, what we were doing right, and beating me senseless for being an accessibility noob. Um, this
Same.
this this week we are going to dig right in. We're going to start building the UIs. Today's main point is going to be thinking in buttons. We're going to start small. We're going to, start with something that I think, I'm actually pretty weak at. So I'm excited to learn from Ryan today. Ryan, what are we going to be working on today?
Good question, Dom. So last week we started on buttons. We kind of were just like improvising. But this week, Dom and I did a little bit of planning and preparation. So we're gonna give buttons their due diligence. Oh snap!
Oh, that
Chris
big
Biscardi
raid.
coming in with a raid of
Oh,
24.
Chris, what did I tell you? I told you to keep streaming. You're such a guy. I just want to hug you virtually.
Welcome on in, everyone. Hey, Chris.
Corgis in the chat. So anyway, back to what are we working on today, Ryan?
So we're gonna be working on buttons. We're going to
Cool.
go into Figma first. We're going to start in Figma. We're going to design some buttons, and we're going to use some good practices called, you've probably heard of atomic design. Maybe you have it. We're going to use some atomic design principles to lay out our buttons in Figma using some component patterns and nested components to make it really easy to make changes to our buttons, provide themes to our buttons, or states to our buttons like active states, hover states, focus states.
This is gonna be dope.
And then from there, we can dive into a code sandbox and build it out.
Dope. Yeah, so I've like so lightly used CodeSandbox, so I'm for sure gonna let you drive there, and I'll just be in the background and I'll type some stuff for you.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. So yeah, what we're gonna do, we'll start in Figma. We're gonna start with the design. Ryan's gonna go over a lot of the principles there. I definitely have never looked into Atomic myself, so this is gonna be dope. We're gonna share a read-only Figma in the chat so that everybody can follow along live with us on the Figma. You're more than welcome to stay in the Twitch. We'll also have it here. We'll be sharing Ryan's screen. Last time we were sharing my screen and it did diddly squat for us. This time we have set up a proper scene for Ryan to be able to drive and take the wheel. So yeah, cool. Ryan, you gonna handle the link?
Yes, I am.
Dope.
So you can follow along either with this link, with this share link. Here, I'm going to share my screen. Is that cool, Dom?
Yeah. Yeah, if you share, I'll switch over.
Thank you, Ryan Harris, for linking Atomic Design in chat.
Ryan Harris,
Brad
what an
Frost.
alley-oop.
Brad Frost wrote some good words about atomic design, and we'll see today kind of how that can apply in a button scenario. What's up, Sarah? Good to see you, Sarah. Emily, how's it going? So here we have a Figma file. I'm going to share this link. So this is going to be a view-only link. So if you want to open Figma on your side and build along with me, you can. You could also hop in this Figma file, or you can just chill in the stream, whatever works for you. And I will link out the article that some of this is going to be based on or inspired by. So one moment. Hey, Tony, I see you in there. So this is an article on the Figma blog about creating atomic components in Figma. So what does that mean? So I'm going to start by just drawing out a frame. And we're going to work on a button. And so to start, we're going to do the most basic of buttons. So buttons have usually just two things, a background and some text. So let's say learn more. Now selecting both of these, just hold shift, select the text, select the rectangle. I can go up here and create a component. So now that we have a component, this is a component primitive. And by that, I mean, this is going to be the smallest building block for the rest of our button design system. We're going to use this little button here. We're going to make it look better to create the rest of our buttons in their themes and their states, their current state, hover state, etc. So I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute. But before we demonstrate, let's make this look a little prettier. So could we get some suggestions for a color, maybe a hex code or an image with some color inspiration?
Sorry, my cat was yelling at me at the door, and if I didn't let him in, he was going to start freaking out. He's the worst.
What's the cat's name, Dom?
His name's Ollie. Welcome to the stream, Ollie. This fat schlob is my best friend, and he loves my beard. He's my buddy.
Okay, so we got Papaya Whip, and we've got a hex code from Chris. 2 hex codes from Chris. I want to move my chat so I don't have to look away.
Papaya Whip. What a Chris thing.
Oh, my chat went away when I popped it out.
Oh, that was a Ryan.
Dom,
what's up?
Dom, can you give me a hex code?
The hex code for... Stop it!
It's the hex code from chat.
Yeah, that Chris just put in?
Anyone that looks good to you.
Sure. 1FA 9F4. Oh, no, you're good.
1FA 9F4. Cool.
That's a nice one.
So we got this nice blue. Thank you for that, hex.
Ryan asked, "Where's my cat's dedicated can?" I'm sure he'll get one eventually.
We need a kitty can.
Kitty can.
So I'm gonna do some small design tweaks. I'm changing the font. We're gonna use Work Sans, which is the typical UI font. Make this text bold. Just want to make sure this passes accessibility. So I'm going to check our contrast. Looks good. We're passing all accessibility contrast thresholds. We have a ratio of 8:1. Cool. So now we have our button primitive. I'm going to round the corners. That's a pretty common thing to do on buttons. So this is our initial button or button primitive, and I'm going to name it. So we have button/primitive/default. And in Figma, these slashes are magical. And you'll see that demonstrated here. If you go to our assets panel, our buttons will be grouped as we start adding to this namespace. So I should name our frame too.
For anyone that's following along in the read only, I would definitely suggest also watching him in the stream. You'll be able to see him going through the panels, going through and selecting different options. You won't be able to see that in just the read only.
That's a good point.
This is going to be my favorite part of the stream because I'm just going to grab my cat and let you do all the talking. It's going to be fantastic.
I'm going to do next week. We're going to make you do all the talking.
I don't like that.
Beppo Sama asks, "What is the link?" I'm going to just repost it. We're going to get better at this. Each week we're making little improvements. We need some commands. Definitely. We'll get this nailed down eventually. This week we added panels. We had a couple of Twitch panels sitting below the stream, and we came prepared with what we're going to do, what we're going to build.
We also added some overlays to the stream.
True.
Which we will continue to flesh out. For some reason, it doesn't look like the stream chat is showing up still. And I wonder if our alerts still aren't working, because I see some new names in the chat. I don't know if I've seen.
Oh, you might be right about that.
Like, we didn't get a raid alert. What a pain. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah, it's all good. I've got the chat up here.
Cool.
So that's going to be our pseudo chat. Hey, Nikki, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by. We're learning about buttons today. Yeah, no Streamlabs stuff working. It's unfortunate, but that's okay.
Nikki, welcome.
So now that we have our button primitive, let's drag out an instance of this component. And we can start giving some states. So let's do a hover state. So I'm just gonna lighten for now, nice and easy. We could do a focus state. For focus, maybe we could do a ring.
He does love my beard. Yeah, we'll be on for at least the next hour and a half, 2 hours. So you'll definitely catch us back in 20 minutes.
Okay, I know this doesn't look great. I'm trying to demonstrate the point first, and we can spruce up the design. Okay, so we made 2 copies of our primitive. What I'm going to do is make another component on top of this. So I have our instance selected, button primitive default. I'm going to click create component again and change the name.
Ryan, I can't wait to show you a design I've been working on. You're going to be so proud of me.
Hell yeah. I'm excited to see it.
Oh,
what are you working
on? I've been working on a React Native like note-taking app that I want to add like auth to and sharing notes and stuff like that, and it'll be my first like attempt at creating a native app. So I decided to just like throw all of the design in Figma first and like kind of get my feel for how the looks, you know, of it will feel before throwing code down. And I definitely used a lot of the advice you've given, so it's been awesome.
Awesome. Maybe we could take a look at that on one of the episodes.
Maybe we can.
Okay, so do we have any more hex codes in chat? I want to give our button another theme. And then demonstrate kind of the reason that I'm doing all this naming and this component nesting. Any hex code will do. Thank you, Beepo.
Stop it. All right, you gotta go, dude.
Thanks, Chris. We can do all of the above. So this, I'm gonna go with a light text. So now we have another button theme. So instead of being our primitive, this is gonna be, I don't know, we could call it maroon default. And I'm going to, again, click create component on this instance of our initial button. And then we can drag another instance out. I'm holding Option on my Mac to drag instances of these components out. So we're gonna do another hover. And you can see the structure here. We are indeed nesting some of these. So this one is going to be maroon hover. So I actually messed up a little bit here. The primitive doesn't necessarily need to have these colors. It could just be gray. Primitive is, the point of it is to kind of establish the layout of the button. You know, how tall is it? How much padding is on the left and right of the text? What is the border radius? Not so much the theme. But that's okay, we can still work with it. So now I'm going to demonstrate kind of the magic of doing these nested components. So on our primitive default, I've got the rectangle selected. You can see as I adjust this border radius, all of our buttons are updating.
Oh, wow.
So it makes it super easy to theme and keep consistent buttons in your design system. So there's one other thing we could touch on, which is auto layout. When I make my buttons, I like to use auto layout. All it is one click. Whoa, that was unexpected. I'm not sure why that happened, but back to auto layout. I've talked about this before. I think I talked about it last stream actually. But as you type, the button grows. Looks like we do have some issues there with alignment. And we can adjust our padding here. And you can see them all changing.
So yes, Ben, he's definitely going to drive in this design stuff, because if I was telling you stuff about design, we'd be here for hours, because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
See,
Ain't
I'm
that
curious to
right?
figure out. We'll change that one day, Dom.
Oh,
You're getting better in Figma.
see, all y'all need to understand, I brought Ryan onto this so that I could learn from him specifically, and it just so happens that we can start a stream from it.
Ulterior motives, I see.
Oh yeah, for sure. Design is easy. Just get Ryan to do it. Exactly. See, now we're getting on the same page.
Hey, Codephobia. How's it going? Dom, I thought you were a designer at Cloudinary. I think I saw that on Twitter, right?
That would be a bad hire. I'll tell you what, though. This oatmeal cream pie right now. Woo! At Ryan Warner carries. Isn't that usual?
Ooh, I like this green, Emily.
That's a
nice pick.
That's a serious green right there. I like that. I'm not a big fan of green usually either. I like that. I have like a unhealthy addiction to oatmeal cream pies. I'm a big fan of the what's the flavored Cheez-Its? The white cheddar Cheez-Its.
Ooh, I like this pink too. We got a nice little set of buttons here.
Ask in the chat, can you zoom in?
I can definitely do that. Oh, I'm working at a really weird percentage. There we go.
Thanks, Tony. I'm gonna go get a color too. Hold up.
I want to fix this focus state. Looks pretty bad right now.
Isn't that how your focus states all look? Sheesh. Much better. We got some much betters in the chat. Sweet. Thank you, Tony. Per usual, you are the best.
So we could have incorporated this focus state into the primitive. We can kind of see what happens if I do that. So we can see how it's easy to like make changes, sweeping changes across the whole design system.
Oh, wow.
Using this like nested component style. And then with overrides, you can come in and fix the colors up. By overrides, I mean component overrides.
I just started working
with new components. Go ahead.
I just started working with the whole component idea, and I definitely tripped myself up by making changes to a child component and finding mishaps throughout all of the things that were using that component.
Yep, for sure. So one of the overrides that we can do is actually hiding and showing elements. So for this default and this hover state, I'm not showing the focus ring, but they are still part of the component. They're just a component instance with an override.
I'm really liking that pink.
Me too.
I would love to see these colors like on a site.
Well, we're gonna build soon.
And maybe you will. Beppo, okay, so when you create new base buttons, the ones in the left row, and then you copy them, they are automatically receiving that opacity decrease, or do you have to manually do it first, then create a style from it?
Hold up, I didn't quite follow that. I'm going to read it myself.
Okay.
Create a new base button, one in the left row, then you copy them. Opacity decrease. What do you mean by that? By the opacity decrease? Are you talking about like the hover state?
Like going from, yeah, like how you're going left from a darker to a lighter color.
Here's the base pink component, for example. This one's missing hover state, so we can do it right here. So I'm going to Command Z. This was a copy of maroon. It actually should have been a copy of our primitive, but I'm going to just create a new component. One second. There we go. So new component. I'm going to rename it. It's going to be, instead of maroon default, it's going to be pink default. And I'm going to copy Command C, Command V. Now we have an instance of our pink theme default. And I'm going to override the background color.
And that detaches it from the component instance?
It detaches only the style that's been overridden. So only the background color is now detached.
Okay.
So we can demonstrate that by dragging out another copy of
Sure.
our pink default.
Awesome.
And I'm going to change this pink to a different color. And you can see the one that's been overridden is not updating the background color. But if we were to change something else,
like if you were to change
border
the
radius,
text. Okay, yeah, cool.
Because the border radius has not been overridden, it's going to take from its parent component. All right, so I could clean this up. I kind of was moving fast and nervous doing it in front of people. So there's definitely some mess here that could be cleaned up. But I'm also open to just moving into building this in a React component.
I think it would be super useful to see how you would clean it up because, for me, like, again, I always bring it back to like watching you do Figma reminds me a lot of how I clean up my code, and learning kind of those processes in a design fashion really helps to understand, like, when you write sloppy code and then you're like, all right, well, let me go back and clean this up. There's such a learning process in seeing that happen. I think it would be really cool to see you reason about what you think is, not clean and clean it up.
Okay, sure. That sounds good. Yeah, it's difficult. Talves, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I keep zooming out. Maybe I could... Is there a zoom to fit? Oh, there is. Cool. Today I learned. Thank you, Tony.
Tony, you deserve a hug.
So I'm going to try and remember to zoom back in, but for now I
Shift
actually
0.
do need to zoom out.
Or Shift 2. This is showing me that I really honestly, Gabby, me too. So, but that's what we're here for. I think that's what's really going to make this a unique stream. Is a lot of the time it's easy to find code videos, but I think all in all it's hard to find start to finish. And that's what I was really excited about this for. And I think Ryan is just such a great teacher, and I really think that the way that he scaffolds his Figma projects really, it really connects with a lot of people, I think. So
thank you, Dom.
Of course. I'm here for oatmeal, cream pies, and compliments.
So I'm just starting fresh. Kind of rushed through the initial implementation. So making our button primitive again. This time I'm not going to give it a color. Now the primitive really shouldn't be used. It should be like the building block to create a themed button. And to make that very clear, I'm just going to leave it grayscale like this.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan Harris asks, do you find Figma fits all your needs, or do you also use Photoshop or Affinity Photo?
Good question. So for UI design, Figma definitely fits all my needs. if I need to do some bitmap adjustment or photography editing, then I would reach for a tool like Photoshop. I've not used Affinity Photo, but I think it does some similar things.
Thanks for the question, Ryan. Dinner time, Beppo. Hey, thank you so much for joining in. Oh, dude, it's Swiss. Yo, I didn't even know.
Oh, Lucas?
Yeah.
What's up, Lucas? Thanks
Right.
for stopping by.
Got me bamboozled out here. Yeah, we should still be on for a little bit. I'm thinking, I mean, we're still in the design mode. We still got to go into some code. You got some time. Sizz. Nice try, Ryan. I appreciate the effort. All right. See you, Ryan. Thanks for stopping in.
Later, Harris. We'll give Ryan Harris a participation medal. Yes, we will.
He'll blame it on the... Look, he is already blaming it on the hardware. He's probably going to bring it back to Apple.
So feel free to ask questions as I'm kind of just cleaning this up. It's kind of a manual, somewhat boring process.
Welcome, David. Thanks for stopping in. So what could you walk us through a little bit, you know, what you found was, you know, unorganized that you're currently in the process of organizing?
Sure. So the main thing I think was that I was copying instances of components that were not the primitive default. So when we make our theme, we could actually do that now. We make our themed button. I want to be copying this primitive each time. Mm-hmm. So here I'm gonna drag one out, and we're gonna grab a color.
Okay. So it's because you were creating multiple instances that you were copying over instead of a singular component that we were pulling from.
What I did first, which was wrong, is creating this theme. So let's create this theme real quick.
Oh, stop it, Raj.
Button, we'll call it blue default. And then what I did originally, which was incorrect, is to copy this blue.
Yeah.
And use this to create our green or maroon.
Right.
What I should be doing is copying this primitive, which is our basic building block, our smallest molecule.
Okay.
Or atom. And from here, changing this background color. So we'll go to this maroon.
Right. So basically everything but the initial instance is like now you're copying straight from the initial instance and instead of creating multiple instances that you're copying from.
Instead of creating like nested instances.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So we can actually demonstrate that. So with this maroon, I copied this default, copied and pasted this default primitive. Mm-hmm. As you can see by the name of it, I've got it selected here. Button primitive default. And then for this theme, this maroon theme, I'm going to create a new component and change the name to maroon default. So this is how it should look. You see when I expand it, we have our default, our primitive default nested underneath here. Mm-hmm. And before, what I did was copy this blue, change its color, and then make another component around it. And you can see now we have the blue default nested inside, and then nested inside that is the primitive.
Okay.
So we have one extra layer of component nesting that we didn't need. I think that was causing some of the issues that you were seeing when I was updating and expecting all of the updates to apply globally, and it looked kind of funky.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Nikki said, think of the buttons like the HTML DOM. You want it nested correctly.
Yeah, in many ways, that's correct. Yep. So I'm already, I think, doing it wrong again. So even with the hover, I should be dragging out the hover primitive. And then last, I've got the active. I didn't do focus yet. I'm wrapping them in components. So I copied and pasted the button primitive hover, and I'm going to change this to button blue hover. And maroon. You can see the active state sitting behind it there. Or focus ring. I'm actually just going to hide that for now. So I don't know what's going on here when I click or remove this focus ring. Everything goes grayscale. Maybe I named it wrong.
Hey Ryan, how long have you been using Figma?
I've been using Figma for a year and a half, and before that, I was using Sketch, which is very similar. So I was using Sketch for probably 4 years before Figma came out.
Okay. What made you make the change?
A couple of things. I think the number one thing is the collaborative tools, like the ability for y'all to be in here, observing or watching is something that Sketch did not support at the time. I don't know if it does now, but last I checked, it didn't. Also, these comments here. So I can click this comment, add show comments, drop a pin.
Codephobia, commenting is great in Figma.
Yes, seconded. So I could drop this comment here. I could @mention people, etc. And people on my team will see this, get an email about it. So it's great for design discussion, design review.
Is there no commenting in Sketch?
Not that I know of, no. It's possible they added that in since I left. I haven't been following their releases closely.
At work, I've been using Zeppelin.
Cool.
Or at least that's what we get our comps in, and it's like pretty similar. It allows you to like export CSS, stuff like that. Nice commenting system. I just don't know if it's paid or not. And I've never really used it, to be honest. I just get comps in it.
Zeppelin is great for handing off designs to developers. Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool. Horatio says no comments yet in Sketch.
Okay.
That's unfortunate. They just added collab. Cool. So two designers could be working in the same file at the same time, it sounds like. All right, so it's clear there's a little bit more for me to learn here about how this all works. But I think it's time to jump into some code.
Let's do it. Do you have a sandbox ready, or do you want me to fire one up?
I'm firing one up right now.
Okay.
So buttons are more complex than you might think. There's a lot to consider around how they interact, how to override the default browser styles, accessibility. So we're going to hopefully run into some of those issues and tackle them. So we'll create a React sandbox. Okay, so we're going to render a button on the page. I'm going to create a button directory. And we're going to add a button.js. And this is going to be a simple React component. The default export of a function that just returns.
Hey, welcome, Tortilla Joe.
We're going to return a button. And then let's get this on the page. So I'll import it.
And are we going to be utilizing theme UI? Are we going to be what are we going to be using for our styling?
Good question. Let's use styled components because that's what I'm used to and familiar with. I think some of the concepts and usability issues, design system issues that we'll run into will be universally applicable whether you're using styled components, Emotion, Sass, Post CSS, theme UI.
I finally made my way over to Emotion in my projects.
Awesome. How are you liking it?
I am liking it. I am getting used to working with the CSS prop. I like it. I'm getting, and what I mean by getting used to working with it is like, I'm so not used to putting styles right in the JSX. Like I'm so used to extrapolating to either a styled component or a style sheet. So I'm kind of getting used to that. It's not too big of a hurdle. It's definitely, I haven't built out like large scale CSS in it yet, so I wonder how that's gonna look. And I'm pretty sure you could just extrapolate it to to variable names anyway, and just throw that into the CSS because it's just CSS template literals. So
yeah, you can actually use it almost the same way as styled components. APIs are very similar.
Yeah.
Good night, Horatio. Thanks for stopping by.
Horatio.
Thanks for the questions and the live research about Sketch. Bite-sized code, yo, what's up? How are you doing today? Thanks for stopping.
Is that Christian? I think it is. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Dude, this new chair is something else, man. Like, I'm loving it. I highly recommend Secret Labs chairs. They're expensive, but they are sturdy. And look at this sweet pillow they gave me. This thing is so comfortable.
Got the stream up on the other screen.
Oh, you'll see. Cool. It. Thanks. Look at this thing.
Is this a sponsored stream?
No, but they should be paying me.
Hashtag sponsored.
Throw me some bread.
Chairs are really important, especially now that you are remote. You're going to be sitting
Woo!
a lot.
Your boy. Oh, I'm so excited. Expensive but comfy and sturdy. That's fair. And it comes with a knob for lumbar support, which is like out of this world. A little sweaty.
It does not have
a little hot. It's a soft weave fabric, so I'm a little hot with it, but definitely sturdier than the chairs I've been using. Oh, you don't even want to know about those.
So let's get some styling. We got our button rendered. I'm going to add styled components. And we're also going to need Babel plugin styled components.
I'm sold. Drop that Amazon link. I bought it straight from Secret Labs, honestly. I went with the Titan because I'm a monster. And I broke the last chair that I was in. I will drop a link for it though. Hold on. This is such a good music channel, man. Highly recommend. I will drop the one that I specifically bought, but there is a huge list to choose from. Here we go. See, I'm not that cool yet, Chris. Like, I'm still a bum. So here's another thing. I think the use of children has been something that I've been like super weak on previously, but I've been starting to like really play around with how to utilize the whole children design style, and it's like very powerful. I just recently learned how to like spread props into children, which was really useful for a feature I was working on at work.
For sure. So children is just the content or like whatever you're sandwiching between your tags. So in this case, it can be learn more. We're just passing that through. So it's coming into this functional component as a prop, and then we're rendering it in between our button. And this button is equal to the button we're importing from styles, which is a styled button. You can see we're getting the default styles on the page. Yes, it is programming related. Programming related. Okay, so let's try and style this button.
Out of context, I've been learning more on the use of children. Throw some chores at them and relax a bit in your comfy chair. All right, poor use of wording. What do you want from me, dude? Welcome to Demetrius streaming. Like, I don't know what else to tell you.
Wish I could zoom in on this button a little bit more.
Does it not let you zoom in the yeah.
I'm zoomed in on the browser, but it's still, I guess it's even smaller if I zoom out. Okay, that's okay. We'll make it bigger. Make it bigger with styles.
I don't have any little ones yet. I don't know. Ryan, you don't have kids, right?
No, I don't.
No, okay.
Does Ben?
You definitely don't want little Demetriuses running around. That's just a fact. So there's enough of me in a single person. Ben does not have any children. Let's be real, they wouldn't be small. Honestly, I just hope they'd be a monster like you. I want them to outgrow me. Like, if I ever have a kid, like, girl or boy, I just want them dunking on everybody. Like, I want to... I mean, if that's what they want to do. They could also long jump or high jump if they would like. Or just be a nerd like me.
I ran track in school.
Did you?
I did. I was a middle distance.
Really? I was a sprint runner.
Like a 100?
Yeah, 100. I did try handing the baton. What is that?
Relays?
Relays. I did try relays. And I was okay there. I honestly stopped for football, and then I stopped football for skating and skated for like a good 6-7 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Chris, you were a high jumper? That's awesome. Javelin.
I mean, oh,
very cool.
Javelin. I like that.
We got a long jumper in the chat.
That's a powerful pose. Can you imagine Chris in like a mean freaking javelin pose, man?
You'd be scared if you're in the audience.
Yeah, I definitely would. Nah, that man's probably super precise. He could probably like lick his finger and feel the wind and know like where it's gonna go.
Javelin in college, cool. I ran 400 in college, 800 in high
Shoo!
school.
You did crew? You're a beast for that.
Crew gives you crazy shoulders, right?
I would imagine so.
Crazy strong shoulders.
Crazy
All right,
shoulders.
so we're coding. We're getting there. So the first gotcha is fonts, font families specifically. So for example, I'm going to go to our app.js and we see we're importing here some global styles in the CSS here. And if I change this font family to serif, you can see this button didn't pick that up. We would expect to see this turn to a serif font, but it's still sans serif. So buttons and other inputs like a text input, you have to actually declare the font family directly on the button itself. I'm actually not sure why that is. It must be something to do with the specificity of default browser
default
styling.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So you can see as I apply font family serif directly on the button element, we do get that beautiful Times New Roman. Form inputs are the best with styling, yes. Yes, they are. All right, just a couple more styles to get it looking a little better. All right, so this button is getting there. Maybe a font weight. Uh-oh.
Turn off. Come on now. Why is that so loud?
All right, so now we're going to want to start theming this button. We've got our initial pink button. But what if we want a blue button or maroon or lime green? So I'm going to introduce a tool called Styled Tools. Learned about this recently. I think it was on somebody's stream.
Styled tools?
Yeah. So actually, we could look at the docs. I'll show you the.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
It's great for dealing with props in the styled components world. Dealing with props by default is kind of ugly, hard to look at, hard to read. So we get some nice helper methods. For example, switch prop. So we're switching on the theme prop, and we pass the prop theme with a value of dark. The background color set to blue. When we pass darker, we get medium blue, darkest, dark blue, etc. So this helps clean up our
that's
prop passing
nice.
to our styled components. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
If prop.
So I'm going to bring this into our CodeSandbox.
I'm assuming if prop is like a fact checker for if props exist.
I think it's just like an if statement. So if size is equal to large, actually, I'm not sure.
It almost looks like if a prop is present, if the prop is present, size is large.
If prop, let's see. Returns pass if prop is truthy, otherwise returns fail.
Okay.
So I guess this is kind of like a ternary.
Yeah. That's cool. Interesting.
Yeah,
Very
for sure.
interesting.
All right, so now we need to import switch prop. Keep alt tabbing. I don't mean to. Import switch prop from style tools. Switch prop is not defined. Oh. All right, so let's define a theme or two. Whoa. Where did it go? Sorry about that. One moment. I lost the sandbox. And then we're back.
All right.
Oh, I can't click on anything. This is really weird.
Try an incognito tab just for shits and gigs.
There we go. I refreshed and it started working.
Oh, okay, cool.
All right, back to our styles. We're theming this button. So we're going to have a prop called theme, and we're going to allow for, let's do green. And in the case of green, our background color is going to be this. And in the case of maroon, do blue as well. So now we can add some more buttons to our page.
So for how switch prop works, would it be theme dot green? Like how? Yeah, I would love to see. So theme. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Huh. That's really nice.
So I'm actually not passing the props down all the way to our styled component. So I'm just going to do that. There we go. And then we have theme equals maroon.
Huh.
So now we have all of our buttons rendered in their default state. You'll notice that this black text on the maroon doesn't look good, so we actually want to come back to our styles. I'll do another switch prop. And in this case, we're changing our color. So when color, or when theme is equal to maroon, we want our text to be white. And I'll get rid of these others. Cool. So now we have our themed buttons.
The styled
This
tools
gives-
is really convenient, and I'm assuming it works with any like either emotion style components. Doesn't matter.
I believe so. Yes.
And what do you think? I wonder if it's usable within the CSS prop. I assume it would be. Like the
I'm not sure. I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I'll have to try that out.
Cool.
Styled tools. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat for everybody.
Word.
This is what it's all about. This is what a team does. Sometimes you gotta sit back and let the pro handle it. You know.
Cool. Thank you for dropping the link.
Anytime.
All right. So a couple things we could ponder over here. What happens when we have hundreds of themes? Like, let's say we are Airbnb or Facebook, and there are just so many different variations of buttons. It could be colors, it could be sizes, it could be with an icon, without an icon, with a border, with a background color. This is going to grow to be really large. All right now we have 3 themes that are changing their background color, but if we had hundreds, this file is going to get giant. So how would we handle that? So one thing you can do is kind of back to our Figma layout here. We have this primitive. So we could create our button primitive, which would be everything except for these themes. And then make a new component for each of our themes. So we could do maybe colored button that could handle just the color themes, so all the different color themes. We could also do, yeah, actually I'm kind of changing my mind. What if we do like green button? And then the green button is going to import our button primitive.
So I see so I see where you're going, like directory path where you'll go green button and then green button.js. What holds you back from doing like green button and then index.js?
Oh, nothing really.
I've seen so many people, I've seen some discussions around how it allows you to like see the file paths cleaner so that you can go, you're getting green button in case there's a couple of different files in there. I just didn't know if you had a opinion there.
I no real opinion. I mean, maybe it's my personal preference that it's easier to search for a big code base for the specific file. I've worked on code bases where we do it like this. I've worked on code bases where it's index. Right. I've also worked on code bases where it's both.
What? So like where they'll do green button.js and then they'll import it into the index file.
Just import and export. That's all the index does.
Yep. I've seen that. Cool.
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily right or wrong there.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
I'm actually going to put these styles back for now. So just kind of to recap a little bit, the reason I'm working on this green button component is because I'm imagining our design system growing exponentially large. And these themes getting unwieldy. We have lots and lots of themes, making this switch prop grow to be giant. And that can be hard to maintain, but it can also be bad for performance. For example, anywhere we import a button, we're importing the code for every single theme. And when you have hundreds of themes, that's inefficient. It can also be hard to update. I think I mentioned that right before. When you don't know, like there's so many themes, how do you keep track? So one possible solution is to, yes, hundreds of buttons. Use this original button that we made, take the theme stuff off of it, and then we can wrap that button. Actually, would it be, we need some styles. I think we'll actually import the button here.
I think something I'm really excited for is for us to like put all of the UIs together to make like a little design library for people to use, for us to use and for others to use. I think that's going to be really interesting to finally kind of work towards.
Yeah, I'm really excited for us to get to that point. We can kind of take the stuff we're learning here and button it up and release it open source.
Now. Button it up.
Typical UI lab, yes.
Let's see. Push and pray. That's what I always say. I did not expect that to rhyme, by the way. And I continued rhyming. What do you say? Hit the hay. Damn.
Stick to a day job, Dom.
Somebody should pay. Oh, dude. What is wrong with me? Oh, man. Bars. Typical UI bars. That's what they weren't ready for.
Can you write me an intro rap?
Yo, I will stream. Don't get me started. I will drop bars on this stream.
Let's go. I want to see that.
All right. I mean, if you're asking for it. I will slide in to an intro with some bars for us. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be the next day, but it's coming.
Something looks undefined.
I just went completely left ear. That's weird. Element type is invalid. Expected a string.
All right, something's wrong with green button. We can get rid of this. Ah, my import is incorrect here. I'm importing it. I was importing a default, but there was no default.
Haha.
Okay, so now we have our green button in a different way. So we're approaching the design system, the theme of our button in a different way. It is more performant in a large scale application. When you're working with a small app, maybe you only have 3 themes. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think you can do it however you like. You could use switch prop from styled tools like we did first. And then as your application grows, maybe you refactor towards this separate button for each theme, where our original button is never actually rendered, but just imported. It's that smallest molecule in our design system or for the buttons. So this background color could actually be, something really boring like gray, because it's never going to be used. It could also just not even be defined. So in green button, in the styles here, we're importing our button. Maybe a better name for this to match with our Figma file would be button primitive. So we're importing our button primitive and then applying the styles for the specific theme that this button adheres to. In this case, the green button has a green background. So Dom, what approach would you take for a small app? Would you start right with the separate components importing from a button primitive, or would you have one single button component use switch prop and then pass the theme down?
I'd probably go switch prop and pass the theme down, because I don't see myself having even in a large scale application, maybe specifically on a button. I guess I could be wrong, because I feel like you could have multiple different states to buttons and different opacities per state, which may be, you know what I mean? Like maybe you'd want to handle that in an individual styled button area, like green button, black button, blue button, things like that. So I don't know. Actually, you know what? Maybe I would go the route that we're going right now, because I think that you're really gonna run into. I think buttons are overlooked as an easy UI, but dealing with a button properly is, I think, a little bit more complicated.
For sure. So personally, I kind of do what you originally said, which is a single button with all the themes defined in that single button file. And then as my application grows, I might decide to break that out.
Yeah.
The apps that I've worked on thus far have not been of the scale of Airbnb, etc.
Right.
So I haven't really run into the performance issues that the single button approach would have. But it is a cool thing to keep in mind. And yeah, I don't think it's wrong to start here or start with the switch prop. Do I use Sass? Not lately. I used to use Sass exclusively before CSS and JS was a thing.
Almost every work project I've been on, I've written Sass. And up until recently, I'd written them in my private, like in my personal apps, but I switched over to almost exclusively using Emotion as of recently.
But Sass is a perfectly viable solution. I think it would be cool to do this exercise again in Sass. I'm not prepared to do that right now, but I'm curious how that would look, because we can't do this styled button. So maybe it would be a mix in.
It would probably be a mix in. And drop. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I don't know. I think the reason I went away from Sass and towards specifically using CSS and JS was because it made me feel more closely related to the things I was coding. Like, I felt like I could write styles to my code the same way I would write functions to support my components. Like, I enjoy being able to come to a component and have a pretty full scale knowledge of what's going on inside of it, from style to functionality.
So there's one more gotcha that we could go over. I think we have, like 20 more minutes or so. If you notice, when I click on this button, this focus state doesn't look too good. So it's important to have focus states. Like, as I'm tabbing through, if I'm a keyboard user, we definitely want focus states. We don't necessarily want it on click. So there's a package out there that I found called Focus Visible.
I'm on it, coach.
Helps us handle this. So Dom is going to link that in the chat. There is more detail you could go into. There's an explainer. I think there's a white pages too.
Polyfill for Focus Visible.
But essentially what this does is it helps us get around this issue. So we still want to be accessible. So when your user is tabbing through, we want to have that focus state. But when a user clicks, we don't. So let's add this dependency. And then let's go back to the docs. Here we go.
See my buddy still hanging out back there. He loves his comfy, like, soft blankets.
It's not quite working yet. Now we have no focus state, which is bad. You definitely want a focus state. So we probably forgot to import it. I need to bring up a project. I did not refresh my memory before getting on stream today for this portion.
This is the reality. Ryan Warner codes. Ryan Warner also looks back at his old projects.
Yes, I do.
I tell people that all the time. You know, I think it's funny that, like, there's a stigma that you're supposed to remember everything. The sole purpose for why I always create, like, you know, sometimes in the Discord people are like, dude, like, you're always creating new projects. The sole purpose for that is so that I have something local that I can reference at all times whenever I get into sticky situations where I'm, like, blanking.
Absolutely. I find it so valuable. I maintain boilerplates for different stacks for that reason exactly. Not just to like kickstart new projects, but also to like, oh, how did I do that? What was that pattern that I used?
Actually, I'm so excited that I just got my first npm. Like I did my template for Create React App. I put that up on npm finally.
Is that new?
Huh? Like what? Being able to create custom templates?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that's pretty new. Yeah. And it was super easy, to be honest.
I need to try that out.
Yeah, it was super easy. So now, like, instead of me continuing to have to either like copy and paste in code or like reuse all the depths that I use whenever I'm creating an Apollo client, like React app, I did a little like boilerplating so that if anybody else wanted to use it, they could have a little bit of an introduction into like using emotion, how to set up boilerplate for Apollo, stuff like that. Oh, dude, I just got my GoPro today. Be ready, because I'm coming with the videos. Vlogger Demetrius, they'll call me. I don't know who they are, but we'll figure that out. What the hell is happening?
It's not working.
Weird.
Let's make sure I'm doing this right. And focus, not focus visible. So remove default styles for mouse users only if focus visible is supported on this platform, which it should be. And we are importing it. Command W does not do what I expected to do in CodeSandbox.
I was going to make bad jokes. A bad joke, then my internet cut out. What's up? It's your boy Dom back. It's time to go prank Ryan Harris again this week.
There we go, anyway.
Keeping Don on mono is sick. Sick jokes. I'll tell you what. I'm definitely using this to prank Ryan Harris. Like, you've definitely filled my mind with thoughts that were not there previously. So congratulations, Ben. You've ruined Ryan Harris's life.
So I'm expecting there to be no focus styles on click. Nope. Have we done it? We've done it. I'm not sure what the issue was. That's okay. So you notice when I click on this button, we got nothing. When I tab, I'm pressing tab now. You can see this one does not have the focus visible styles. This one does. So we're getting this focus ring.
Oh, that's nice.
But when I click on it, so the right one has the focus visible applied, the left one doesn't. So when I click on the left one, we're getting the focus ring when we don't necessarily want it. Clicking on the right one does nothing because I've got outline set to none. And I also reset the box shadow to none. But when we're tabbing, we still get it. So we don't sacrifice accessibility, and we still get the design that we like. So we get the best of both worlds.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of how I think about buttons, how I think about them in a design system, both in a design tool as well as in my React code base. We also went over a couple of gotchas around typography and how you need to specifically apply the font on the button itself, and you can't just expect the cascade to apply the font. We looked at splitting out our themed buttons into their own components versus using styled tools or some sort of prop based conditional. And then the last thing we just did was the focus states and how they by default apply on click, which isn't necessarily the best design. So focus visible can help us keep our accessibility and also allow us to achieve the desired design.
That was really awesome, dude.
Thanks,
Cool.
Tom.
So let's yeah, you want to switch back to non-share, and we'll head and do our final scene and wrap up?
Yeah. That sounds good. Stop sharing. There we go.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, today, I think one of the big takeaways that I had was a few things, actually. The styled tools and focus libs are super interesting. I think that's like, I'm really excited to learn more about kind of some utils that I can use to make my life a little bit easier. But mostly for me, it was watching how to break out kind of those small like pieces of I think you called them a molecule, and kind of designing based off of that, and building out like a small design system in an organized way. I think that was my big takeaway for the day.
Cool. Yeah, those are all super important things that aren't always apparent at first, especially for something seemingly simple like a button.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put this one up on our YouTube. I didn't put our first one up. It was more of a tester stream. I'm gonna put this one up on our YouTube so you know, anybody in the chat or out of the chat can revisit, stop, pause, you know, take notes, stuff like that. If there's any feedback, please reach out. We are super open to feedback. Definitely want to hear about ways to improve the stream. You know, especially dealing with having two people on stream at all times is definitely going to be a challenge. And we're definitely going to work on ways to incorporate, you know, a lot of interaction with the chat and things like that. So any feedback there would be awesome. Otherwise, I learned a lot today. Thank you so much, Ryan, for sharing all your knowledge today. I'll swing it to you, and you can give your goodbyes, and then we'll head out of here.
Yeah, I think the only thing I want to comment on is the feedback. We are definitely looking for feedback. Like, how is the pacing? Could we have jumped in the code faster? Obviously, we need to get our alerts working. That's an important interactive bit.
Maybe some
but what can we do beyond that? I like the idea of learning by doing. And a lot of times when I'm on Twitch, watching other coders, I kind of have them in the background. Maybe I'm doing other things, which is fine too. But sometimes I'm very interested in what the person's doing. And the things we're doing are kind of bite-sized things where you can start from scratch and follow along and get your hands dirty.
Oh yeah.
So how can we make that, you know, learn by doing better and more engaging throughout the entire process, and not just the Figma view?
Would love to also hear of any UIs that you would like to see done. We have a pretty good list of things that we want to work on, but we'd love to work on things that, you know, maybe are a challenge in your everyday, things that you have questions on. Stuff like that would be awesome. So yeah, I just really want to thank everybody for coming out. I had a lot of fun today. I'm really excited to continue doing this. Chris, thank you so much for your raid earlier. That was huge. I really appreciate that. Thank you everybody else for stopping in, and yeah, we'll see you next week.
See you next time. Thanks, y'all.
Peace.